Hi everybody, our users, Shiny enthusiasts, maybe open source and Linux enthusiasts out there, no matter where you're coming from. Welcome to another Shiny Developer Series live stream. It is Wednesday. It's been a packed Wednesday for me, but it's always great to unwind with all of you and either learn something new or try to bring something I have learned into some of my open source work to kind of better enhance my skill set and show you some of the things I've been learning about working in the industry and trying to build some pretty sophisticated production grade applications, and sometimes even much more than just that. So yeah, my name's Eric, and if you're new here, welcome. I try to do this every Wednesday, and maybe I'll try to do another day of the week, depending on how things shake out, because there's a few reasons for that. I have a lot more I want to talk about, and I'm actually pretty close to that affiliate status, and I know if I just do a couple more of these at times, I might actually get there. Not that that's been a huge goal or anything, but it's like tantalizingly close. So let's bring in the chat here. Gotta reorient some of my buttons here. So hello, Unicorn Coder. Thanks for joining. And it sounds like you have some thoughts you want to share a little bit that you've been tweeting about. And Ellie and Hugh, hello again. And I think there may be some others joining later, but yeah, we'll get to it. So tonight we are going to work on trying to bring in a framework I've been using off and on for a few years now at work with my at least one huge Shiny application, probably the biggest I've ever done. And I want to start trying it out again with some of my smaller scale open source efforts to show how it can help your development cycle. And that is actually called shinytest. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of the package in a little bit and try it out on one of my more, I don't want to say silly, but definitely an app that isn't meant to do anything that sophisticated, but it gives us a good entry point to what it's like to bring in shinytest in one of these frameworks. And yes, as I alluded to in that little fun poll earlier today, I have some stuff to get off my chest a little bit. And we'll probably talk about that as we go along.
Community time raided my stream with 1 view.
Well, look at that, Monica. Thank you so much. Apparently I still haven't fixed that alert there. But thank you very much for joining. You came at the right time. We are just trying to get up to speed here. Hey, raid's a raid. I welcome all raids, baby. Yep. So let's do this. Let's first kind of show you kind of where I'm going with this in the bigger picture, because I am going to actually do some of this back at the day job too. So let's start looking at some things here. Or not that one. Here we are. So what you're seeing on the screen here is an excerpt from one of the recently very awesome books about Shiny development. It is I'll get to the main page here. It's called Engineering Production Grade Shiny Apps. The book that I wish had been around when I first started with Shiny. Because it has taught me a lot. And the really cool part is that albeit from afar, although there was one time I was up close to this, I saw this idea formulate with the team at ThinkR who are authoring this. I saw the seeds planted. Well, story time. Let's do some story time, right? Get comfy. Get your tea, of course, your Earl Grey tea out. RStudio Conf 20, which one was this? 2019. They had a great poster session, and I think for this one, was this the year I talked about modules? Yeah, I think it was. Was it 2019? Gosh, I can't even remember now. But I remember it was like a couple nights before my presentation, they had the great poster session. And one of them really caught my eye. It was from Colin Fay, who does work at ThinkR. And he had a great... Oh, thank you very much for the follow, Maverick Emmett. Yeah, much appreciated. Colin Fay had a great poster about the lessons that they have learned about making Shiny production grade. It had lots of great little advice and nuggets that I have either learned the hard way, or I was just really waiting for somebody to articulate it way better than I ever could. And that poster definitely did it. And I had great chats with Colin afterwards, just sharing some of the from the trenches kind of stories about the things we've been working on. And then he informed me a few months later that they're going to turn that poster into a book. I was like, yeah, I'm literally first in line for it. And they developed it in the open, and that's what you're seeing here is that it is still not in print yet, but it's about to be, I gotta say, by sometime at the end of this year, at the latest. It's basically done. They're just going through the pressing or the publishing step right now. But I've been so enthusiastic about the ideas they have, and I won't say I agree with 100% of everything, but if you're new to this world of turning your prototype of Shiny apps into production, you could do far worse than to look at this book. I felt so passionate about it that I literally emailed Colin, I think as they were tidying up the, quote, the first draft, or maybe it was close to the final draft, and I said, hey, I'm so eager to see this. I want to write a forward for you. Like, I literally begged them to let me write the forward for them, and he was like, go for it. So I wrote a quick markdown file here, and it's now part of the book. So that's the first time I've ever been published outside of my dissertation was this forward. So that was kind of cool. So yeah, we're gonna dive into some of the principles that they talk about here in chapter 11, building yourself a safety net. This is the part where you want to minimize the headaches that can occur when you're developing an intricate application that could have potentially thousands of users, or maybe it has very little users, but when it is used, it's got to be literally 100% reliable kind of thing. So we're gonna look at a piece that is not there. They have a few different ways of doing it, but one principle that I want to outline before I go further is that the way you can set yourself up for success is that if your application is factored in such a way that what we call the business logic, like the back end stuff that's doing a lot of the data munging, data preparation, assembling variables, as much of that as can be made into functions, R has capabilities of testing all that stuff outside the app. Test that, lots of other packages in that mindset that'll make your life easier instead of having to do everything in shinytest or one of the other alternatives that they mention here. So certainly that's my first recommendation. Get the app in such a state that the heavy lifting is not entangled in the app itself. It definitely takes some getting used to. I definitely was guilty of not doing that effectively in the very early days of my major app version 1 that was a behemoth in each module before modules are even a thing. I've learned my lesson, and it's not perfect yet, but it's way better than it was. Now I'm on version 3 of that thing. So let me to catch up on the chat a second. So, oh yeah, we Basada Buddha, you ask, you deploy strictly internally in the day job, right? How do you handle CI/CD? Good point. So right now we are still deploying to internal Shiny Server Pros or RStudio Connect servers. But the good news is that if the application is constructed in such a way that it doesn't have, like the applications that don't have tie-ins to other systems in our environment, you can still leverage something like GitHub Actions to do the testing for you. Now, with that said, I actually have not gotten shinytest plugged in with GitHub Actions yet. But the overall alternative is that shinytest is going to let you write some R scripts that you could just call at a typical R console prompt, and you could then execute what shinytest does somewhat manually. But you could automate some processes to do that at a regular interval internally if you wanted to go that route. So I don't have a great solution for that just yet. We've done GitHub Actions for our package compilations that are not shiny yet, but this is my next quest, is to get this going. The odd things that you have to deal with when you do things like GitHub Actions is that it's spinning up containers behind the scenes that are totally independent of your enterprise's environment, which means if you're trying to leverage something on your shared file system or an internal database that is not exposed outside your company's firewall, you're out of luck with GitHub Actions out of the box. Now, if things can be factored into APIs, you might have a way around that, but it's not always the case. So sometimes you have to kind of hop back and forth between running something internally without that nice convenience of GitHub Actions, and then for the stuff that doesn't depend on environments as much, still leverage GitHub Actions when you can. So I don't have this perfect yet, so I'm trying to figure out a great way to do this. But yeah, another great point by Isomore here. Targets, one of my favorite packages, and not just because the author of it happens to be on my team. It's actually a revolution in reproducible research, reproducible analysis, and pipeline management. That is an excellent way to get used to these kind of mindsets of business logic, logical steps, and not having to rerun everything from scratch every time. But yeah, I'll be exploring a lot of these ideas as I go forward. So with my business logic recommendation out of the way, what we're going to do is I'm going to scroll past some of the other bits here. They have some interesting things you can do with off-the-shelf software that is not Shiny specific, which I think is going to answer a different question than what I have tonight. I'm going to talk about shinytest tonight. This is for, in my opinion, more so for the developers if you use it in the way I'm about to use it tonight. You can certainly still use it to test like more user acceptance kind of thing. But shinytest is going to be your first line of defense to catch any regressions that are introduced either by yourself, accidentally of course, or in the case that I've dealt with recently, you now have many is a strong word, for a big app I'm working on, not the big one that I keep talking about in Jesse's live streams, but a close second or third. We have about 6-7 contributors to it, sometimes at different intervals, sometimes each at once. That's when you really need some defense, so to speak, to prevent what could be horrible regressions. If even when I review a PR and it looks okay, I'm human. I'm not a machine. Well, that's another story. Sometimes I wish I was, but I cannot catch everything. So shinytest is going to be a way, if you set up the test the right way, you're going to catch those show-stopping bugs at the time a PR is submitted and not after you merge. And you have people going on your development server and be like, uh-oh, the model API ain't working anymore, or, oh, that output's not showing up. Who did it? And then you're into this whole who did what change. Yeah. So you wanna give yourself a safety net for that. So yeah, that's what we're gonna work on today. The good news is that shinytest, according to Colin and company here, has no issue being run in a Golem application, which is what I, of course, have been doing for now over a year in all my Shiny apps that I developed here. Yeah, I'm sure there's some algorithms you could analyze my voice right now and see if there's a Terminator switch behind me or something. Um, so okay, let's get to it. Let's start trying this out. All right, ready? Let's go to VS Code and let's see, first of all, if this thing even works in VS Code. I'll be honest, I've installed it. I have not tried it yet. So here we go. So what I did do in about the last hour before I turned on the lights for this is I went into a Docker file for this application I developed earlier this year as part of the Shiny contest kind of showcase, if you will. And I just added a couple bits to install a key dependency. So maybe we just look at that together real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about here. I'm really hoping there are no Docker fails tonight, but I did build it just now, so we're gonna look at this together here. This is the Docker file for the VS Code implementation of my app. It's not going to have not much VS Code specific things here, but shinytest relies on a external program called Phantom.js. I have a checkered past with Phantom.js as of a few years ago, but as of now, shinytest is still dependent on it. Although they are going to move towards a different headless browser solution, I think in the pretty near future. But be as it may, the key step for me was to get Phantom.js on here. Now, this is, in my opinion, where things like Docker can really help, because I don't really want to mess up my powerful, very intricate, and frankly very important streaming box here that I'm using right now with Phantom.js. So this is what Docker is best for. You throw things in that, add as much as you want, and it should just work. So all I did before the stream tonight is I simply set up a couple Linux dependencies, and I basically downloaded the latest stable version of Phantom.js from the repository that it's at, in this case on Bitbucket, unpacked it, moved it to a local binary, and now hopefully it registers. Well, so may not be so much Phantom.js itself, Isomore. It's Phantom.js running on a fairly stripped down, although that's a bad way to say it, a somewhat more tightly controlled Red Hat Linux environment that my day job has. And I had to basically compile it from source, add it as a module file, although not a Shiny module, that's another terminology in the Linux world, and just cross my fingers that every time I run it, it would actually launch. So it is finicky, especially when you have to deal with not such flexible environments. It's great, I think, for containers though, so that's why we're gonna run it here. Okay. So let's see what we can do here. This could fail spectacularly, or it might work. So I have loaded, let's load shinytest first. Oh yeah, you only installed that package from other package. Oh, our tweet needed it. Oh, interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. So shinytest apparently has a function to check if your dependencies are installed correctly. I learned this from the help page right before I started here. So let's run this. That shows up as true. So that tells me that we should be ready to go with this. Now, what the team at ThinkR says in the Engineering Shiny book is that for the app you want to run shinytest on, you need an app.r file in your application directory. Oh, sure, yeah, thanks, Unicorn Coder. I can do that. For those of you that aren't aware, VS Code is an example application written in Electron, which is basically a JavaScript wrapper for what many would call web apps, and in essence bundles its own version of Chromium, the open source browser akin to Google Chrome. But with that, you can zoom in just like you would with a web browser. So we're going to do that real quick here. That should be a little better. Certainly let me know if that's still not looking good on your side, Unicorn Coder. Okay. So what the authors of shinytest say is that we should be able to start the interactive recorder. Here we go. Okay. All right. Oh, this is looking good. So, those of you that may have seen this in previous streams from a while back, this is my rather either infamous or famous, depending on your interpretation, HotShot Racing Dashboard, where we visualize the results of Season 2 of, I'm going to read it out loud, Monica's going to kick out this, the official Wimpy's World of Linux Gaming, most unofficial HotShot Racing League Spring Championship. Yes, say that 5 times fast, I dare you. So the app was really just a showcase of various widgets that I had my eye on for a long time, and to be able to visualize the racing data that our very team generated from scratch, because the game, HotShots Racing, doesn't exactly have an API to extract the things like finishing times, times finished at each lap, how many crashes occurred, and things like that. So we had to collect our own data, and we even had a redundancy plan, as Yannick and I can attest to. And it came in handy, at least a few occurrences where Yannick was like, I forgot to take the screenshot, Eric. And I'm like, I got it. We pass it back off on Discord, enter the data, and we get the standings updated. So yes, it was a lot of fun. So we got some widgets here. We won't go into great detail about it, although I have to show this. This is my favorite part. The animated plot showing the racers progressing through the tracks. You can see that on the axis here. And yes, the cars are backwards. For anybody that says it, yes, the cars are backwards. And I still haven't figured out how to fix it yet. So they're going in reverse. But, gee, look who came in first. Haha, that's the last time I'll brag about it, I promise. Well, I mean, it wasn't because of the slowness, Monica. I just know you like farming, so I thought it was a perfect fit. I try to be cerebral about these things. So okay, so that's that. Now, of course, my application doesn't have what you're seeing on the right side here. This is a pretty cool thing that shinytest offers you. It offers you a way to basically create an R script based on snapshots of your app at a certain points in time. So what does that really mean here? We'll get to that. We'll probably just keep the default name here. I'm gonna uncheck a few things that might make VS Code go crazy on me. We're not gonna open it again. This is actually the GitHub version of shinytest, so they've added some stuff that I haven't played with yet, so we're gonna learn about that together. Let's see if these, oh look, even the help buttons pop up. That's cool. This is interesting. You can control click on an output to snapshot just that one output. Oh, interesting. So you can also do keyboard shortcuts. So I'm learning how they did this. So this is the app, although it wasn't quite in the initial state, it kind of was. So let's take a snapshot of this right now. Okay, so what it did here is that it's gonna say these events that occur in your app, and you can record them. A snapshot is, in essence, taking the whole state of your app at the time you hit that button. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we're going to change one of these inputs that are shiny specific, and watch the lower right in this and see what happens. We're going to change this to total top 3 finishers, and now you see a couple things just happened here. We have 2 events that occurred here, and this is actually For those of you that may have caught parts of Jesse Mostapek's Learning Shiny streams, one of which just happened today, you might be able to make some connections to how an app flows via reactivity, where you have inputs that change, mostly from the UI side. That might have some intermediate objects in the middle, so to speak, and then there's an output at the end that changes something else. So what happened was I changed at the top 3 finishes. The plot went back to the default state, but it changed the x-axis to total top 3 finishes. And that was what was called an output event. We changed an input, and there was an output event. So let's try taking a snapshot of that. Again, nothing fancy here, just showing behind the scenes what's happening. Now, we're going to navigate to another part of the app, the leaderboard. Now, here's what's interesting. This is more of a function of the package I used to make the dashboard. There was even an event, in this case it was an input called sidebar ID. This was saying that when I went to the sidebar and I clicked that other menu entry, that's another input change. And in fact, look, even just expanding and oh, I clicked it again accidentally. It's taking all of that. Now, this is where you start to see that the recorder here is grabbing every single interaction I can do. This is great for exploring how shinytest works. Now, one thing to note is that when you want to run maybe a test via continuous integration, you're probably going to want to prune down the interactions to be the ones that are most important, because unless you want to mimic what's called the monkey testing for shinytest, you probably don't want to add the time for execution when you don't have to. So now we saw we had all those events here. Now this here is called a Reactable Widget. Reactable is a great package for making dynamic tables in R, and it plays very nicely with Shiny, but I doubt if selecting this is going to trigger anything. It doesn't. Oh, wait. Oh, it did. It did an output event, so that'll be interesting to see if we can... Oh, you know what the output event is. So here's more cool stuff. And hey, Tan, welcome to the stream. We are diving into shinytest, and it didn't crash on me the first time loading it, which I feel like, yay! Because I was very nervous about that before I started this. So what happened here is that this reactable table here has an input binding, and I take that and I determine what to show on the bottom here. So in this case, I'm showing the racing stats for the season for our very humble and very technically powerful racing and streaming leader, Martin Wimpress. So we were able to show his performance breakdowns in these widgets here. But then when I go back to me, now you see that output event was recorded again, and there I am with my breakdown of the performance. And let's take a snapshot of this. Okay, so now we got a snapshot again. So we've done about, how many snapshots have we done? About like 3 or 4 or so. Yes. Monica, remind me, we need to make a meme out of that, because that is literally the one that is right for the taking. So let's orient everybody on this game for a second. In HotShot Racing, it's an arcade racer, so don't look for Formula 1 realism here. But the way you can really take advantage of the mechanics is that when you're going into a curve, you put the brakes on slightly so your car drifts, kind of like what you might see in the old Fast and Furious movies. And then you don't lose your speed as much when you do that than if you try to brake and then turn without, doing the drifting. And some cars drift a little too much. And Martin was definitely not happy in one of those races, and he let us all know about it. And I almost wiped off the side of the road because I was laughing so hard afterwards, but I kept it in control because I needed a trophy to win. But anyway, So that's a meme in the making one of these days. Maybe a shiny app out of it. Hint, hint. So anyway, we've got a few snapshots here. We've got a few input events. Let's see if I have anything on the last tab here. This one probably doesn't have as much. It just has an expander here, but that isn't tied to anything. So I think we've done most of the interactions that we can do in this app. And again, this app in particular is not meant to be very sophisticated, but this is a good way to learn. So I'm pretty happy with what we have now. We are going to save it and exit the recorder. Let's do that. I don't think that's a problem. Let me just expand this. Okay. So we have a script called my test that was saved somewhere. Question is where? Keep an eye on it. It may be. Well, look at that. How nice of shinytest to do that. It made the test directory, the shinytest subdirectory, and then the my test script. So I think it's really trying to be like test that in this sense. It's trying to do the scaffolding for you. And then it's up to you to tweak it however you like. So, ready to dive into this? Let's look at this script for a second. Okay. Well, as you can see, there's not a whole lot going on here. It basically, what you do in shinytest is, shinytest, like Shiny itself, is an R package that's wrapped in what's called the R6 class methodology. What in the world is that? My humidifier just decided to have a life of its own. Let me check it. It'll sound like a jet engine there. Okay, maybe it got mad at me for doing shinytest. I don't know. Anyway, so R6 classes have their own syntax for like initializing processes. Process is a bad choice of words. Of instantiating like different methods and objects that can be iterated upon without like overriding them every time. There's probably way better ways of explaining it, but that's what this shiny driver $new is doing. It's creating this instance of shinytest that's ready for oh, it's all good, don't worry. I have a dehumidifier next to me and it just decided to just turn on its own, so I just whacked it off. No floods. We're good. So it instantiates this new shiny test object called app. And then app will have various methods to do the various things that we just looked at. And one of those was to initialize a snapshot, which will be, I think, overwritten at certain points. We'll have to look at that a little bit. And then this is a major function I used a lot in the other times I did this. Set inputs is going to expect an input ID, and then what you do is that, actually I am seeing some problems here, aren't I? Oh no, I'm not seeing problems here. I'll get to that in a little bit. No, so Phantom.js itself is not R6, but shinytest is. So I think shinytest methods to interact with Phantom.js are using R6 methods to interact with it. But Phantom.js itself, I think, is just, you know, like any binary, if you will. There may be a better explanation for that, but that's the way I interpret it. So what it did at first is that when that sidebar, you know, collapsed to that other side, I have an input called sidebar ID, and I think it just set it to false, which meant that it would collapse. We took a snapshot, and then this is where, oh, the fun begins. Get a load of this. Now, this app, to the surprise of probably no one on this stream, is written with Shiny modules. And the module that we were in when we showed that fun little gauge metrics and the animated plot is this one here called mod welcome. Pretty straightforward, although it's definitely the biggest module of the app. We don't have to get into all the code here, but the way it's declared in the app UI is, let me find it. I give it a name, just like any module. I call it welcome UI 1. And so, going back to the test script, you can see it needed that prefix to the namespace of this input with the module name that I gave it, with a dash separating it, and then this plot stat, that's actually the name of the input, that drop-down input. So just yeah, right here, the select input plot stat. So this was the thing that tripped me up in the early days of shinytest. If you're using modules, you've got to namespace prefix it yourself, which can be annoying, but you just kind of have to get used to it. So what this did is that it set this drop-down input to be the value of top 3 running, which was the second choice in the drop-down, where I had the nice human readable label here, but this was the actual value that Shiny expected. And that is probably the function you'll use the most. And in fact, in this case, that was the only one I manipulated in that module. Because all I did is I took the snapshot, and then all I did was just navigate a bunch of times through the sidebar menu. I'm going to like tab 1 and tab 2 and the tab 3, because those other 2 pages actually didn't have any real inputs other than that drop down, and the there's a slider there too that we can interact with next time. But that, in a nutshell, is what the recorder gives you, is like a script that you can take and modify to your liking to make it a little more robust and do some cool stuff. Now, there was one thing that I think I didn't do in this that I want to do here, is show you the process of taking screenshots, because that is a very important feature in your application testing, so you can actually see visually, is the app doing what you expect? So let's see if that recorder actually had that. We're going to find out. You know what? I don't think it does. This recorder, although now I'm a little nervous here. Why is this screen still white? That should have done something. Let me... Well, it's listening to it. This has happened once before at VS Code. If I run something once, I exit it, but then when it tries to run it again, it gets kind of crazy on me. So I better just get rid of this. So let's try that one more time. I always have to restart the R session, unfortunately. Let's first make sure the app works as intended. I always try to make life hard on myself, I guess. No, that works. Okay, so we got the app working. Oh, so let me catch up. So West Posada Buddha says it's funny. I use almost none of the Chrome in our studio, but seeing R in VS Code stresses me out. Well, it does take a little getting used to, but I've actually become pretty efficient with it. And Ellen Hughes says, any errors in developer tools could be my fault. I don't know about that. You'll have to elaborate further. I may have missed that. Let me just get this app running with the recorder again. Maybe I screwed something up with that. Let's see. Okay, it says it's available. Yeah, this did this once before. Yeah, it's kind of annoying. Let me I don't know why it does this, but I simply quit R. We'll bring up another R terminal. And we'll simply run that again. Let's try it again. Oh boy. I have definitely borked something. That recorder ain't showing up anymore, is it? Oh boy. Now, well, of course, this has happened before. If I open this in an external browser, yeah, okay, I know what this is. You'll see. If I open in an external browser, it's just fine. Sorry, I'll move the chat away for a second. It's sometimes, this is one idiosyncrasy with VS Code, is that sometimes when you run it in its own web view inside the interface itself, it doesn't render, but when you open it externally, it does. Go figure. So this recorder does not have a way to take screenshots, but that's something I want to show you all, because that was a huge part of the last time we did this. Okay, so let me, anyway, I just wanted to make sure this recorder didn't have the screenshot capability. That's all right. We will explore that. Now, this is a good time to show you the documentation for shinytest, and we're going to see if they've updated the site on here. So they have a vignette, and in case you haven't found this, I'm going to put this in the chat if you want to follow along with me. Okay, I'm sorry, Ellen. I totally spaced out what you were talking about. Okay, this is about VS Code. You tightened the content security protocols a month ago, but it has some issues with JavaScript that uses unsafe eval. Okay. Well, I will look for that fix. I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't think I've updated the extension since then, so okay, good to know. All right. So this is, let's go to the vignette on testing in depth. This is going to walk you through some of the things that I've been playing with on my side. Is our recorded script kind of did this for us, that it initialized a shiny driver object, and that's going to be what you interact with the most. And in here you'll see they're just setting inputs for various types of inputs, like a check group, an action button. You can do snapshots, and snapshots can be customized. So typically what a snapshot will do is it'll record all the input, the output, and any exported values, we'll get to that in a little bit, in a JSON file. JSON, of course, is one of the ubiquitous data formats for exchanging information on the web. And shinytest will use that JSON file to compare different snapshots and see what changed. So that's what's happening already. And it also automatically does a screenshot for you when you do that. But you can turn that off as well. And then this is the part I was talking about before, is that sometimes you have reactive objects that are very important to the state of your application and to reproduce a certain workflow. shinytest by default will not care about those when it does a snapshot. So you want to, maybe if they're important enough to you, export those out in case you need them later. And that's what this code here is doing, is that they have a call called export test values, and they define them by basically calling the reactives that they correspond to. And then that snapshot is going to save those as part of the JSON coming back. And then you can also do some cool things like adding delays well, it's not so much from shinytest itself, but one thing you'll notice if you've done shiny for a little bit is because of all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, if you change one thing, it might take a half second, maybe even 3 or 4 seconds for an output to render. And so what you want to do is you want to maybe build in some wait time to make sure the app catches up from the UI side of things to whatever your next step is in testing things. And so the easy way to do that is just adding a sys.sleep call to do that. And if you do like any random things, you can set a seed if you have to generate random numbers as part of your application so that you have a dependable, random generation. Otherwise, if it has a new seed every time, it's going to flag your app as being different when technically nothing's different other than the random number stuff. The other key note is that any app that has like a UI that's navigation friendly, like the navbar panels, or in my case a BS4 dash, the sidebar panel, if they have a capability of setting an input ID, you have to do it so that you can track that if that's part of your application testing. And this is what I was looking for. There is a way to take a screenshot with a simple function call. You can not only just take it, you can also save it somewhere. So we're gonna explore that probably in a little bit here. And then maybe during your testing, you want to inspect the state of everything you saved from maybe a previous snapshot or just at the time of the app being run. You can just grab all the values and you'll get a list of 3 things: the input stuff, the output stuff, and the exported values. And most of the time you'll interact with the input stuff and the exported values, 99% of the time. There's some new stuff about waiting for an input value or an output value to fully render without having to do the sys.sleep stuff. I may explore that in a little bit here. I'm just looking with... Okay, this I have to comment on this before we dive into the code again. Now, most Shiny inputs have what's called a binding. That basically is kind of like your tie-in from the user interface to the backend server. But there are very important things that do not have input bindings out of the box typically, such as the DT package that we often use for interactive data tables, or one that you saw me use just now, Plotly. Now, there was a checkbox that said save inputs that do not have a binding in that recorder. They say there is some limitations. We may actually experiment with that. You can kind of see that in their example here, they do have comments that say you tried to do something here, but it doesn't have an input binding. We'll get to that in a little bit. So, okay, that was good. We want to, we'll do the recorder one more time, which I think I closed it already. I'll reboot the recorder, and we're going to try saving stuff with the input bindings and see where that goes. I'm just going to run it on here, then I'll throw it back on the browser in a little bit. Let me answer some more in the chat. Isomor asks, so you could run this with your commits and check that the values are unchanged unless you want them to. Yes, very much yes. One thing that's a selling point about this is that initial snapshot can be used as your comparison when you run the test later on with maybe a new set of commits, a new pull request, and if they're the same, then the tests are all going to, say pass. But if any of them are different, shinytest is going to let you know about it, and it's going to hopefully pinpoint where those differences are. So that's an excellent point. Now, what's really bizarre is if I go back to VS Code here, the recorder is working again. I have no idea. It's very, or at least, what I should say is that the recorder is showing up on this like it should have. No idea. So let's check this box. We're gonna change the name of this, and we're gonna start playing with this again. Get some stuff in here. We'll do an initial snapshot. We're gonna change this. We'll change this one for good measure. And we'll save that. Take snapshot. We're not going to open anything. Okay. I think that is it. Okay, cool. So let's see if that script showed us any of that input binding stuff that we just read about. It should be right here. Okay, so you can see there's nothing here about that, which I'm not too surprised about. I think this is one of the hardest things shinytest deals with, is these HTML widgets, and the fact that they do a lot of things client-side only, so it's hard for it to grab what those input bindings are. If I have time, I'll tell you about a workaround I did to get around this issue back in my version 1 automated testing of the big, and I mean really big app that I've been working on. But okay, that was good to know. So actually, this will be a good script that we can just play with now outside of the recorder to work on kind of that screenshot stuff. So let's we're going to change this name to Bash because we're going to try running this as a separate script. Okay, so we're going to load our packages first. I'm going to beef this up. Now, keep in mind, now that it's a script form, you can load whatever you want here. And you can augment this however you like. So the flexibility is now in your hands to tune this the way you want. Now, what worries me is this, is that when the recorder was running, oh, thanks, Ellen Hugh. Yeah, don't worry about it. I think what happened was that when I opened it externally and then closed it and then ran it again, it just magically fixed itself. But don't sweat it. That's the least of my worries. Thank you for joining, and again, great job that you and Rune are doing with the VS Code extension. Much appreciated. So have a good night. So what I'm worried about here is that when I run this script from this session in my R session, I always do that. Wrong time to save this now. Let's look at my working directory. My working directory is in the root of the repo, so this is not going to work because it's going to try and go 2 levels up, which doesn't make any sense here. So instead, I think we just need, oh gosh, I hit the wrong key. Right. We just need to delete this since we're running it kind of interactively right now. But in a real situation, you wouldn't change that. Well, let's just trying this out. Okay. So when you're running this is kind of like, so you can see VS Code thinks we're running the app right now. It did that little pop up there, so that's interesting. Oh, sorry, I forgot to bring the chat back. Sorry for that. Okay. So we're gonna initiate a snapshot. Let's see what this does. Yeah, nothing fancy there. And now we're gonna run this part. Set input so the sidebar is false. Now that's interesting. Now I'm a little worried for a second. Did it actually run the app? And this is the part where we're gonna test this out. App takes screenshot. Okay, now that that doesn't look right, does it? That's just a blue screen. That should not have looked that way. Now, I think I know why. No, this is good. You're seeing some of the issues that I encountered a few. Yeah, nice app, right? A few years ago when I first did this. Shiny Driver New is going to think everything's done, perhaps even before it really is. So from what I recall, there should be a way to add a timeout or a time limit to this, but I need to... Yes, okay, so here. So you can see in the help I'm showing here, Shiny Driver New has a lot of stuff here, but there's a parameter called load timeout is null. How long to wait for the app to load in milliseconds? Defaults to 5 when running locally and 10 when running on CI. So I guess 5 seconds wasn't enough. But what we can do is we can, I believe, stop the process. App stop. Okay. So now, let's see, what was that? Oh, it's not gonna let, oh, it thinks it's a little timeout. So let's try 15 just in case. I think, yeah, I'll just be safe here. Let's do 15. I must have the parameter name wrong. Let's see. No, what did I do wrong there? Load timeout equal null in milliseconds. Oh, milliseconds. Oh gosh. Okay. That would have been dicey. Okay. Let's see if, yeah, okay. What? Oh wow, this is really getting crazy, isn't it? Oh wait, 1500 is 1.5, isn't it? Oh, my math is terrible tonight. A millisecond, or 1 second, is 1,000 milliseconds, right? I hope that's right. Okay, so that would explain it. So we want, let's do a unicorn coder saying we'll just do it in this way. This should wait 10 seconds, although it, okay, let's see. Now my viewer is not showing up here, is it? Now app tape screenshot should have a way to save to a file. I just need to look it up. You know what? We're gonna have to open the help menu ourselves. All right. Oh boy. Okay. shinytest. Oh yeah. Screw it. We're gonna look it up via the old-fashioned way. Our index. Shiny driver, okay. So look at take screenshot. Where is it? There it is. File. There it is. Okay. So that's what we want to do. We want to save it to a file. Yeah, that's a good question, Isomor. It depends on who wrote the package, but typically what they'll do, I'll recreate that, is they'll have their main R6 class documented here, and then what happens is R will compile all the methods in this same help file as the class itself, and then you can click the hyperlinks for each of these, and then you'll get to the section where they talk about it. So that should work in RStudio as well. That should be navigatable just the same. So what I want to do here is do the take screenshot with a file argument, so that we can make sure it isn't something else that's screwed up. Now, where do we want to save it? Alright. I have a prototyping folder. That's perfect for it. We'll create a directory in the command line way first. Okay. Okay, so I think that will do it. Let's see. Oh, I gotta get my R terminal up first. Okay. Alright, let's take a look at what it has here. Still ugly. Okay. So that means there's something definitely wrong with the app at that point. So let's quit out of this. We're gonna launch. Well, what is R6? Yeah, that's a good point, Unicorn Coder. Let's explain that a little bit. I'm gonna look it up and then we'll look at it together. R6 is an object-oriented class structure in R. It's actually by Winston Chang, who coincidentally is now the lead author of Shiny itself. They claim it's more lightweight. It's a bit simpler than the built-in class methods in R, which are called S3, S4, and is it RC? Forget about the other one. But they use this internally at our studio for a lot of their packages that are dealing with pretty complicated things like Shiny, of course, and many others are using it as well. Yeah, so I'll put a link to this in the chat here. Feel free to look at this. And I admit, I've used R for how many years now? Sorry, I have to get doing the math in my head. 2005, we're in 2020, 16 years. I am not an expert at S4 or R6. Now, R6 came well after 2005, but R6 is probably the one I need to dive into more, because that is a fundamental building block of Shiny, shinytest, and some other community packages that do a lot of interesting things with Shiny. They're using R6 to make that a little more elegant from the developer side. So that's on my learning journey to do later on. Okay. Where was I? Okay, the figuring out why the app is going crazy. Yeah, R has object-oriented programming built in, but you can also make it act like functional programming too. It's kind of a hybrid of a few things. That's why I think some, more computer scientists that come into R from other languages get a little weirded out at first, because it's a mix of different things. But it's just the diverse nature of how R was created, that we have these different mechanisms available. It's pretty cool. Yeah, R Selenium, exactly. R Selenium is another R6 package that you can use for testing. It's a great point. All right, we're going to go back to VS Code here and see why my simple script is not working as intended. Load this again. Now remember, my app had that weird thing where it had a loading screen. And I wonder if that's messing it up a bit. So let's bump this up even higher. Okay, that was longer. So let's see if we do a screenshot now, if that looks legitimate. Where is it? Nope. Still haywire. I am as confused as I've ever been. Because we clearly shown that recorder, it worked. But something is going crazy with this. it simply is not rendering. Now, is my math correct? 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second, so 20,000 milliseconds should be 20 seconds. But there was another parameter here that we didn't look at. It's not just the load timeout from the Shiny side. It's also, there's another timeout as well. Phantom timeout. How long to wait when connecting the Phantom JS process in milliseconds? Guess we can try that too. Got nothing to lose at this point. Phantom timeout. Let's do that the same value. Alright. So let's stop the app first. Yeah, I don't know if it is Phantom or not. I feel like there's something I'm missing that I know I had to deal with many years ago, or a few years ago. Let's try this again. No, that's too soon. That is just too soon. Let's just see if I can... Yeah, that's bonkers. That is bonkers. But the weird thing is the recorder worked just fine. That's what's really bizarre about this. But what I don't know is that if this is a VS Code thing or not. Now I've introduced that source of variation, which can rear its ugly head here. See if there are any parameters I need to be aware of. There's a debug thing. We can add a debug flag there and see if we get anything there. Okay, let's try that again. Well, that's almost no help at all, is it? It's not giving me any debugging messages. Let me see, I gotta read more about this. If they have a clean log, so I have to remove... That's not gonna help. Now we could just try... We can try just initializing the snapshot. We get all values. Okay, let's see here. Well, look, okay. No, this is, okay, this is where I'm really getting confused now. It got the inputs from the module. They're here. So maybe it's just that my screenshots are borked, but that the app is still actually running. Ooh, call R, yeah, maybe. But the key point now is let's see if this works. If we set this input, I'm gonna take this stuff out. Let's see if this actually does anything. Okay. No error yet, and now let's get the values again. We should get, yeah, the app is working. It's the screenshots that are borked. Why, I have absolutely no idea though, but we definitely got something here. Okay. We can also do the same thing with the plot interval and make sure that gets updated. So again, it's a similar idea. Let me take that out, app set inputs, and then this was called plot interval. And we're going to set that to be 0.2 or 3. No, 2. Yeah. All right. Let's see if that does it. Okay. Get our value. And there's actually a cool thing we can do here for app get all values. I keep closing the help menu and I shouldn't do that because I keep looking stuff up. Okay, this is good to talk about. We can also do not just getting all the values, we can get a specific value. So let's just type it in here. So I think, well, look at that, GitHub Copilot. Thank you very much. It auto-completed that for me. Will this work? Oops, I forked that. Let's try that again. Oh no, you know what it is? It didn't quite get it right. It's got to be an input, I believe. Well, let's look at the help menu for that. Well, oh, silly me. Needs to be in quotes, not the backticks. This should do it. There you go. Look at that. It says DNF running. I'm gonna do interval. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. I'm actually using tonight also to... I've been away from this for, like I said, 2 years, this framework, and I feel like I'm getting the hang of it again. I've been off this thing for a while, so it's great to get the feel for it again. Cedar Prince, welcome. Glad to see you. It's been a little while. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining me on a late night stream here. Much appreciated. Okay, I feel more confident now that I'm getting the hang of this again. So we did a get value. I want to show, especially just for myself personally, what to do, customize certain things here. Where is it? Get all values. Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about, is that you can grab just certain portions of it, of all the values that are there, and we can say output equal false, export equal false, which means I'll only get the input values back. And there you go. You get an input list, you got the welcome UI plot interval, and the plot stat. So we've got it. Okay, so we said Buddha has some good feedback. My problem with GitHub Copilot is that the fun part is writing the code. Debugging is the miserable part, which you still have to do. Yes, you're right, yeah. The part that it did help a little bit, though, was that when I was writing... I can't remember what I was writing recently, but it like auto-completed a pretty complex name of something. And it was like, oh, that's slick. It actually helped me out there, yeah. Oh, I'm glad you've been doing some traveling and stuff. Okay, good. I'm doing okay. I'm about to get into my, probably my epic rant for tonight after I do some, fixing here. Okay, so let me save this before I forget. Let me see what other things we can do here. See, the screenshot stuff's not working, but we're just going to experiment with some of these just to see what they do. Here's what get URL will give us. I think that will give us. Oh, okay, because it's running locally. When I say locally in the Docker container, it's doing the 127.0.0.1 kind of stuff. There is some slick things you can do with finding specific elements on your page, kind of like the scraping stuff where you have like a CSS selector or an XPath selector. It kind of can help you pinpoint certain areas. I'm just kind of curious what else we have here. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty good for now. And as usual, people like the cedar prints make me feel even more behind the times. You're working with Common Lisp to poke around homogeneity. I can't talk tonight. Metaprogramming. Oh, I have tried some of that, and the impact of Lisp on modern languages. Okay, yeah. I'm not doing anything nearly as sophisticated as that. We're automatic testing of Shiny applications with a package called shinytest, which lets you run the application in a background process, and you can kind of interact with it on the R side of things via this object-oriented class to grab things without looking at the app directly. So it's great for CI/CD and to see if you broke something if you do a major change. And so I'm literally doing this for the first time in like 3 years, using this package and getting a feel for what the paradigm is. With a very silly app, mind you, but I'm going to take the learning into my projects down the road. All right. I could use a break from the coding side. It's time for story time. I've had a heck of a day. It was kind of a roller coaster a little bit. And I'm not even really sure why it was, but I'll go in order here. So I've been working at the same place for now about 12 years now? Yeah, 12 years now. Overall, I can't complain. I mean, definitely have had some great opportunities. I'm doing meaningful work, I feel. But there are certain situations that kind of make my head scratch a little bit. And today I almost had what you might call an identity crisis of sorts. So this is all very vague. Let me set the scenario a little bit. So I was invited not to speak at a meeting, but to be a part of our group attending a review meeting with some very important leaders on a group that we have cooperated with in the past was presenting a Shiny app that was taking outputs from an app that our group created for a technique called network meta-analyses, Bayesian network meta-analyses. And they were cleaning some things up, made a really nice post-processing kind of app. And our leader that this was primarily targeted the demo for was absolutely amazed. Now, I will give them credit. They took some pretty basic features of Shiny and pretty basic features of R and just made a nice user experience out of it. But what was interesting is that these are things that our group would have loved to have put into the major apps that this stuff is producing the output for. But we honestly didn't know they were doing this until like a couple weeks ago or so. And I don't know how to say this, but it was like, we want to help out as best we can. And if we see that we have applications that have a shortcoming somewhere, just like an open source project, we want to know about it and we want to improve it. Especially if it's impacting the target user base. So I didn't really like how that went down a little bit. But the part that kind of made my my gears grind a little bit is this leader was asking some very thought-provoking questions and some, albeit pretty esoteric requests. And at one point, the demo person was saying, you know, I never thought of it that way. I'll have to figure out if there's something in the R ecosystem to do such a thing. And the leader asks, oh, is so-and-so here on the call? And so-and-so being a colleague of mine that is actually pretty good with R as well. Oh, very good, I should say. And he was not here. He was on break right now. Now I'm on the call, and I'm ready to chime in with it. And the leader says, "Oh, okay, I guess we'll move on then." And I'm like, And I was a little irked by that, but then I found the package that could accomplish what that request is for, so I put it into the meeting chat, just put it in there. And then nothing after that. And I think somebody did IM me back saying, oh, thank you, Eric, we'll look into it. And it was kind of like, all right, well, that's kind of how it goes sometimes. But it was kind of a microcosm, it was kind of a bigger thing, is that the group I'm in kind of works on things behind the scenes a lot. The things we develop are often used in more high-profile situations by those that are helping with some very important deliverables. And it's just been this way for a few years now that... How do I say this without sounding like an ungrateful you-know-what? But there's not a lot of recognition for what we do. And mind you, I've created probably the biggest Shiny app in the entire company, neck and neck with one other one. It just sometimes gets a little demoralizing, I admit. And I know there are ways to maybe remedy that, but I remember it reminded me about there was a time about 4 years ago that I knew I was kind of coming up for maybe a promotion level, but I had to really seriously bust my behind to make that happen, because I'm just not a natural person to kind of like toot my own horn and brag about stuff and make me sound outstanding. It's just not natural for me to do that. But I had to kind of, I don't want to say play games, but it was kind of like there's a certain set of things you kind of have to do in that time where you're evaluated for these things to make yourself credible for that. And I'll be honest, I basically almost burned myself out doing that. It was like I had to take on more projects, I had to go to all these different presentations and, try to impart that to a new supervisor at the time. Had some pressure on me about some of that stuff, and it was like, yeah, I ended up getting the promotion, which was nice and all, but I paid a pretty heavy price to get to that, at least that year. And it took me quite a bit to recover from it, but it kind of made me realize, going fast forward to today, that it's like, sometimes for the work I do, you almost have to force yourself to be in more visible situations, or somehow think that maybe something that deep down may not be the best way to accomplish something ends up actually getting more attention than the thing you do that's robust from the start. That in my case, my big major app is only used maybe 3 times a year, but when it's used, it's got to be perfect. It doesn't have the same user base as some of these other things that were demoed today, or some of the other things I did in the past. So yeah, performance is a big thing, but it's also, to be perfectly candid with you, it's the visibility. It's pretty tough. It's admittedly kind of exhausting sometimes. like I said, I'm flashing back to 4 years ago when I went through this. And I know there are things I could do that kind of maybe be in the middle there, but with the way the years have gone, especially in light of the big world event that we've all been living through, I just don't have as much energy for that kind of stuff as I used to, maybe. On top of having a family, and, you know, honestly not even being able to do this unless it's at night, which, I mean, I'm making it work, but believe me, I'd much rather be doing this in the late afternoon or something, but it just, the cards aren't there. And then there was one other confounding thing in all this, and it's not related to like my workplace stuff, but it was about, you know, pretty recently, not too far off. I mean, what's the best way to say this? A place I respect a lot that's doing great work in the community, and likewise for a lot of people and in different areas of stats and data science. There's always been like an idea of what I'll call a dream job over there. And I remember even just briefly exploring that many years ago, and I was, in essence, kind of told it wasn't there. And apparently it did open up recently, and there's a very, very awesome person that ended up getting that. And I've always, but it was literally like the dream role I've always wanted. And now it's obviously taken, but I remember I was a little peeved about that, because if I had known, I might have done things differently. But hindsight's 2020, of course. So I'm trying to make things work now, but I admit today and some other stuff kind of had me a bit, what's the right word for it? A bit down, I guess, but I'll have ways of picking myself back up. And there are people that do appreciate the work that my group does and some of the things I do that are definitely outside of like my normal job duties. But that's kind of like where I joked about that identity crisis, is that I don't fit the mold of what they consider a statistician is. And that's not it's just a fact. It's not like saying anything good or bad. But I just so happen to be somebody that values keeping up with the latest in the community, like some of you I think are alluding to here. I try to bring that back to help my projects. But is that in my job description? No. It probably never will be. And to be frank, in the track I'm in, there's still more weight put on kind of like the research in the traditional sense. Like, did you publish a manuscript? Did you give this presentation at this very stat-heavy conference? And I've done that. I've done presentations. Believe me, I've been to JSM. I've been to other conferences. I've done that work before. But that's not the only way to contribute. It's not the only way to have external influence. And I admit, my industry in particular is having a hard time catching up to this stuff. We're making strides, and the best part of recent years is that I've found kind of set of, you might say, kindred spirits that are in my same industry that are also passionate about open source and data science and using R or even other open source tools to improve our daily work, but also just have fun doing it. I know a lot of these people now. If not for them, I would probably be a lot more sad about it. But the fact that I can network with them every year and we get together with a big conference, now it's big. I mean, it didn't start big, but we have a conference every year that brings all of us together, and I've even been asked to speak this time. I'm going to have fun with it. That helps, but again, that's just not recognized as much as I think it should be. And not saying for me personally, I'm just saying for anybody that's in my situation. And I have a very, very, very talented teammate that's also been doing very immense work in the community that has been starting to get recognized finally. But even for them, it's been tough. So Yeah, I am in life sciences, actually, Cedar Prince. So, yeah. So that's been... I think it'll get better, but it's hard to bring that change just on your own. But like I said, I have a couple people internally, but also like I said, some externally that I network with, and try to learn from their experiences too. Sometimes I just don't ask enough questions, and I'm trying to be more proactive and trying to not sound too nosy to people, but just kind of get their take on things. And frankly, the stuff I've been doing for the Shiny Developer Series, the interview portion of it, has honestly helped me, perhaps even more than even helping the community, because it brought even more connections and more perspectives that have shaped how I approach things now. So if not for all of you in the community, whether you're watching this live or on the VOD, it would be tough. I'll just say there are parts in my ebb and flow of my career that have been tough, and I feel like I'm about to hit one of those tough cycles, but I think I can get through it better and maybe just have... The problem is that I don't even get time to think a lot. Like, there's times where you just wish you had a day you could just be like, no meetings, no IMs of people having more HPC problems and only asking me for help, or, you know, things like that. Or, hey, my Shiny app doesn't work, but I never even tried to debug it before, and I expect you to rescue it, kind of thing. Like, there are times I just wish I was paused there, and I could just think about how to orient myself better. Rant over. I apologize. It was just kind of like, I don't know how to best manage some of this, so I'm just learning. And part of me thinks that doing this 12 years now, you would think I'd have a handle on it, but I guess I'm still got some stuff. Okay, well, I don't know if that helps or hurts or anything, but that was it was the first time this morning where I had a reaction like that. Like, normally I'd be like, awesome, they use Shiny in this way, they got buy-in from their customers, and they're using our tools, albeit outputs from it. I mean, I should have been ecstatic, but I wasn't. And that's where I kind of knew something was off, and I wasn't quite sure what. And I still don't quite know what. But time will tell. This will be the funny part, though. There have been situations like this in the past where they'll make a great prototype. Now, they could be anybody in the company. And then suddenly, the concept of scaling it up comes to mind. That's when they say, okay, we got this group wants to use it, this group wants to use it, they want to change it this way, they need to change it this way, we need all this now. And that's when the prototype becomes so much more than a prototype. And that's usually when I hear a little virtual phone ring, and they ask for my guidance at that point. And sometimes it's an interesting challenge, sometimes it makes me want to run, because the technical debt that's accrued in these prototypes can be so immense that even someone like me, who will have like an OCD complex of trying to fix something to make it better, even I sometimes don't have the energy to rescue it. So I hope that doesn't happen here, but if it does, I just got to prepare myself for it. So anyway, yeah. Where the heck was I? Okay. Shiny test. So we got most things working except the screenshots. I'm okay with that. But what it showed me tonight is that even for a very basic app, I have ways of, once I launch the process and I give it some graceful waiting times, a way to manipulate the inputs, grab the values of them, whether I get a single one or I get all of them, set some more inputs, and then take a snapshot. Now, the part that didn't work just now, let's see, let's try taking a snapshot now and see if that worked. Oh, that worked. Okay. So let's explore what this snapshot actually looks like. Here it is. Okay. Let's first look at the PNG, which is still busted immensely. Okay. But let's look at the JSON file.
Thank you for the follow, Ryan.
Oh,
Plant.
thank you for the follow, Ryan Plant. Thank you very much. Okay. And you can see there's not much here, but this is the JSON of that get export stuff. It's saying, okay, the module welcome UI 1, plot interval input is 0.2, welcome UI 1 plot stat is DNF running. So what's going to happen is that if I ran another snapshot that did that same test script, and then it would compare against this one, this is the original one, it would compare against the new one, and if any of these are different, it's going to flag it. So this is where the magic starts, is that it's not just these inputs. You might have some exported values that are like the intermediaries between assembling inputs and then passing them on to an output, or maybe passing them on to an external process. You maybe have to bring that back a little bit. But this JSON is hugely important to grab all that information and document it in a plain text way. So, well, thanks, Monica, for joining. Yeah, I definitely feel a little better, and I know it's late for you too. So I'm sure I'll see you around, perhaps on Sunday for maybe some more racing. We'll see. So I'm building a big shiny app, and I'm at the point where I hit the G in a search engine. It suggests the GitHub for HotShot's dashboard. Wow, really? That's definitely not my biggest one for sure. But hey, hopefully it's useful to you. Okay, so we got the JSON out. I'm not sure there's much more else I want to do with this tonight, because I'm afraid that we're coming up on close to my end time here, and I don't think I have the mental energy to go through GitHub Actions right now. Plus, honestly, that screenshot thing is irking me, and I know the only way to narrow down the screenshot is to run this in RStudio itself. I know that's the answer, and I just gotta do it. But you have a good question, Isomore. Where's the output? Isn't that what you want to compare? Not necessarily, although in the case of plots, if you're doing a static plot, yes, you probably do want to record the plots. And then what it will do is it will do like an image comparison between the different snapshots for those plot image files. And I think it converts them to SVG or something, so it can really pinpoint into what those differences are. That's certainly an output you want to do. Otherwise, for the more display looking outputs, I actually recommend, if you construct your Shiny app in a robust way, that the output container, whether it's a DT table, or a plotly plot, or something like that, that you record the underlying data about that as an exported value, and then be comparing that exported value between snapshots, because all that output window is giving you is what that looks like in a web-friendly representation. It's more about what's going into it. So that's why I think by default, output objects are not saved to snapshots, or if they are, they're honestly not that helpful to you, at least for me personally. So maybe what we can do, let me see if there's any cool things we can do in this reactive, or this module for the chart. Okay, here's a case in point. I have here a reactive for the data that's going into the chart. And you can see it's used here as is in Plotly, and then we just add some stuff on top of it. So what we could do now is, before we leave tonight, we can export this value to make sure the shinytest will actually grab it. So going back to the web page here, Let's look at our testing in depth here. Exported values. We want to do something like this. I'm just going to copy it here and then we'll put it in the app. Now, I'm not sure if it matters the order where we put it, but just to be absolutely safe, I'm going to put it at the end of the module. Now, I believe export test values is actually a function in Shiny itself. Yes, it is. Okay. So you don't need shinytest for this function. But what you want to do here is you want to give this the name of the reactive, which of course I forgot already. df_chart. Oops. Okay. So what this should do is every time I do a snapshot, it should save this in addition to the inputs. Now we're going to stop the app, we're going to start it again. And then we'll experiment with all this, and then we'll see what happens. First we'll change this to true. Actually, all we have to do is, I keep hitting the delete key. We can just do output equal false. And that'll do it. Okay, let's run our test again. Okay, let's try it in it. I'm gonna bother the screenshot this time. We'll do this. We'll do this. See if that works. And we'll do get all values. Okay, now you're about, okay, so here, okay, that totally got destroyed in the terminal output. Oh, it must not be a tibble, that's why. Hold on. Let's just save this as an object, because this will actually show you what I do in real practice here, is I will save these as objects and do stuff with it afterwards. App. I think this will work. Nope, it won't. And you look up the help page one more time before we head out. Want to get value. Oh, it does not work for exported values, does it? Oh. Okay, now I remember how I did this a few years ago, is what I would do is I would do get all values, and then what did I just do? VS Code just had a nice crash on me. Sorry for that. Okay. First time that's happened in like ever on this stream is that app crashing on its own. Try that again. No. Alright. There we go. Yeah, I do need comments in here. Let's do that. Let's yeah, let's be nice to future me. And then I'll just keep that in the same place there. Screenshots are broken. And then Okay, now. Exported, okay, there we go. Always good to narrate this with comments. Okay, so now instead of get value, we're gonna do all values. And in this case, we do input equal false, output equal false. And this will be a list object with just export, I believe. Let's find out. So, yeah, it's a list of one. Let's see what the names are. Yeah, it's export. Okay. So it's going to look a little gnarly here, but this is real time. And do the double bracket notation to grab it, and then I think this is just going to be a underscore chart. Okay. Still a list of one? No, that should have gotten it. What did I do wrong? Wait, did I? Oh, I put in. Oh, duh. Put it in the wrong spot. That shows how late it is. Okay. That should have been up here. Let's get word wrap on here, otherwise I'm gonna go crazy. Okay. Alright, this should do it. No, it didn't. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's see what this does, just getting the export object out. Oh. The modules again. This is where, yeah, you have to be very careful with this. I remember now. Okay. I'm just going to type it in now, but there's actually a way you could define these in a function call, but not tonight. Now the F chart's at Tibble. Yeah. Yep, now we've got our racing data here. Yep, everything's fine. Oh, give me the emojis render in VS Code. How about that? Okay. Nice. Show yourself the modules. Yeah, in fact, one thing I'm going to do in my, when I use this again in the big stuff is I'm going to look at my app UI and app server files for all the names of the modules that I give, so that I have them in some kind of list or even a data frame, and then give it a little more human readable way of looking them up so that I can just grab them dynamically and put them in here, which I think is what I did last time around when I did this a few years ago. So I think there's ways to make that better. So, but overall, with the exception of some screenshot quirks, we have ourselves shinytest working almost flawlessly in a Docker container with Phantom.js in VS Code, because we couldn't abstract things enough already, right? This makes me feel happier. And the next time around, we're going to plug this into GitHub Actions, because of course the whole point of doing stuff like this, in fact, this app in particular doesn't really need it, but the one that does need it, that's starting to get a lot more attention these days, albeit itself doesn't do a whole lot fancy stuff, but I don't want to break it, is of course the now getting a little more famous by the week, shiny cow. So what I want to do is make sure that if I update this, that I run some CI/CD with it to make sure I don't absolutely break it. So I feel like there's ways that I can augment shinytest with this, even though technically the biggest data-driven things are the streamer dropdown. And yes, Unicorn Coder, I got your feedback on the time zones, and I think what I'm going to do is utilize a widget with your HTML code a little bit parsed out with, I'm going to show you, shiny widgets. Shiny widgets is my favorite package in Shiny ecosystem dedicated to awesome inputs. And what your your response to the issue was with the more robust time zone selections is stuff like this, these option groups, where we could have the groups that you specified and then have these individual items under each of them. And that's not all. We can then still keep the cool stuff that I had before with the live search. So that in this case it's city names, but then you could still have the groups and the searching to quickly get the time zones quickly and easily, much like how it's not organized here, but of course I can grab the New York time zone and have that updated accordingly. We're going to make that better. So your response to that issue is going to be very helpful to put that into the shiny widget that I'm going to make even better, the one right here. So thank you again for that, and we'll probably do that. I'm not sure if I'll do it on stream, but it's going to be enhanced one way or another. So, all right, approaching the midnight hour here, so I think I will maybe wrap some stuff up here. So you saw that shinytest definitely takes a little getting used to, but I think it is a very valuable tool in your Shiny production development arsenal to give yourself and frankly your team of developers peace of mind that when a major change is contributed, that you have an easy way to automatically check if any regressions occur with the right upfront work. So obviously these scripts don't write themselves, but if you align with your fellow developers on one of the most important parts of your app to test that's outside the business logic, this is a very important piece in your development toolbox. So I'm happy that I was able to dust off a few of the cobwebs of last time I did this, and I will be putting it to good use both at the day job and probably over here as well. So okay, well, if you want to get in touch with me, you've been seeing this stuff scrolling down on the footer there, give me a shout on Twitter, or also the Discord for our streamers group. I thought I had the command working. Let me see if it works now. Yes. You can join us on Discord. There's myself, Afton, Tan, Mariah, Jesse. We got many others that are joining as well, and definitely keep in touch with us. So, okay, I think that'll do it for me. So you all have a great night. I'm not sure if I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see. Depends how my day goes, but either way, I'll be around. So take care. See you all next time. Bye, everybody.